Okay, let's get started. Our week number 4, we're gonna, we've talked about a lot of mobility techniques so far. And again, though, to me, that's only 20% of the value of this class. The 80%, the thing I hope we really take away is how to actually incorporate these joint movements into the rest of our lives, right? How do we actually have a year from now that we're actually doing a bunch of this stuff and we're living with less pain? So, and it's, like I said, it's a hard thing. It's not a simple thing, but I think as I've looked into it, the one thing to start is just start ridiculously small. Start with some behavior that it's so easy you can't say no to it. The 2-minute rule. If you want to start a habit of reading, just commit to read a page a day. If you want to do some mobility work every day, just do something. Lately, like the resting squat is something I just work on a little bit every day. But then I have a bunch of other ones I do. But, maybe you just get on the floor and get back up. Or maybe you try breathing exercise or a foot massage or, using the squeegee on the shower door or walking the stairs often or whatever. Just, start doing something that creates habits. And then the one thing that makes this joint mobility work easier is that you get to define what you want to do. Like if you were going to say, oh, I want to run a 5K, there's kind of a prescribed way, you got to go out and run. You got to do exactly this kind of thing. Where this stuff, you can decide it. Maybe it is just sitting on the floor a little bit more often than sitting on the couch. Or maybe it's the way you walk, just learning more the way you walk. So it's pretty much, it's your body, you're driving, and you get to decide what you do with this stuff, which also makes it kind of hard, right? Because you have to decide what you think works for you. But I think if you put a little bit of effort into it, you can start this routine of different things you do that really just help you feel better. The next thing is this habit stacking idea of, if you're going to establish a new habit, it's kind of this formula: after I blank, I will blank. After I pour my morning coffee, I'll meditate for a minute. After I brush my teeth, I'll floss one tooth. Something simple, but after I get to my desk in the morning, I'll watch some mobility videos on YouTube, which I do encourage you to kind of do. Hop on YouTube and once you start watching them, they'll feed you more. And there's some that you'll find, oh, I don't like that at all, but there'll be some that you'll find you do like. And all these habit loops, they all have 3 parts. There's the cue, the trigger to set a specific time, location, or previous action that says, hey, okay, I'm going to start this. And then the routine itself, whatever you're trying to do, and then the reward. And, a reward can be something like a high five, a healthy snack, a moment of relaxation. But one of the tricky things with this is there's not, like if you take a nice long walk, you do get the reward of an endorphin pump, right? You just feel better. You've been out, you have all this. With this stuff, often you don't get that. For me, as I've thought about it, this mobility work, one thing is just to smile and think about how much better your life's going to be. Just kind of think, I've just done something that's kind of hard. It's not physically hard, but it's hard to do. And then another thing it sounds odd, but gratitude, this feeling of gratitude is really an excellent reward. If you can get in the habit of just being grateful for whatever it is you're doing, and particularly when you do this stuff, I can do this. I can lean down enough to squeegee the shower door. I can do that. I can do that 8 times. I can step up, I can walk the stairs. That feeling of gratitude, as opposed to the opposite, the feeling of, well, I can't. There's all sorts of stuff we can't do. But that feeling of gratitude for what we can is also an endorphin pump. Okay, so optimizing our environment for these habits is also important. You just kind of reduce the friction of what things would not make you do it. If you want to exercise in the morning, you lay out your workout clothes the night before, that kind of thing. And you also add some friction. If you want to watch less TV, you take the batteries out of the remote. To me, as I look at this, it's a real value if you can try to see this stuff as a hobby rather than work, rather than something I have to do. What I've seen over the years is we tend to put a lot of effort into our hobbies. You know, the things that we kind of enjoy, we'll jump in and do fishing, genealogies, you know, whatever. It's different now. Unless you really love your work, then treat it like part of your job. I thought Steve Hipson would be here. So. Plan for failure. Consistency is more important than perfection on this. Like, I almost think, unless you absolutely love doing something, don't do it 7 days a week. You know, give yourself a break, change things up, because if you're doing something every single day, now maybe you're wired, you can do that. But for me, I like a little bit of variety. There aren't many things that I do every day. But do have this idea of, if I miss sometimes, that's fine. But if I'm just missing all the time, then I'm starting a new habit. So the last things I want to cover on this is the idea of sabotaging ourselves with brain chatter, right? We all know that there's, you know, our brains, maybe not constantly, but almost constantly chattering in the background, right? Telling us good things or bad things, things to be aware of, whatever. Usually bad things, a lot of times bad things. And learning how to realize the falseness of the bad things that our brain is chattering is a super valuable skill. And while it's kind of a whole nother class in this idea of truly seeing what's happening now, living in the moment, whatever you want to call it, is a value that really helps you have a more fit body, because you really do see what's going on. There is a book, The Surrendered Soul, which is wonderful about this stuff, about hearing brain chatter and like learning what it is and just sort of moving more in the moment for whatever that's. Okay, so establishing new habits. They say these days it takes 66 days. They used to say 21 days for a habit to become something that's more automatic. But it's also, the research tends to say 18 to 250 days. And I mean, who the heck ever knows? But it takes a long time. I mean, that's kind of the thing. It is not like if you're going to start and give up after a couple weeks, you probably won't have made a change. And the idea of a bit of an identity shift, you know, rather than, you know, I'm going to run a 5K, it's sort of more, I'm going to be a runner. You know, so rather than I do a couple of these things, I'm a person who tries to stay mobile, stay flexible. Okay, again, some goals that could help. You know, that one I talked about before, looking ahead into the future and saying, you know, what do I want to be doing when I'm 85 or 10 years from now or whatever? What things do I want to do then, and that if I'm not doing them now, I won't be able to be doing them then. Accountability buddies is also a really helpful thing. Just someone to talk with that's actually interested. I talk with Debbie about this stuff. She's not interested. But I talk with Cromer about this stuff. And it depends how much I talk, Drew. But if you can find somebody to sort of share this with and sort of talk back and forth, it's such a valuable thing. The joy of competition. Now, you're either sort of wired for competition, if you're not. Like, if you just love competition, this stuff can also help with that, because you can be competitive. A lot of people aren't wired with that, but if you are, it also motivates. And finally on this is the idea of writing things down. You know, there's a basic business tenet. We improve the things we track. I know a lot of people won't do that, and I know I'm really far on that side, but whether it's a Google Drive or a 3-ring notebook or a regular notebook or something, to just write stuff down and show what you've been doing and show your progress just really is valuable. Okay, so let's get into our first assessment. It's about walking, just the value of walking, the idea of, you know, tracking our daily step count. So let's everybody stand up. You know, the idea of walking 10,000 steps a day, just kind of walk around a little bit. Where did 10,000 steps a day come from? Anybody know? It's a crazy thing. It came back, I think it was in like the 50s when they invented these things, pedometers. some marketing person said, hey, we should have everybody say walk 10,000 steps a day. And that's how, so that's where it came from. And the funny thing is that 10,000 steps a day is a kind of a good amount. They just sort of randomly started, but it's a pretty good amount. You probably have a fitness tracker on your phone already, whether it's or you may wear a watch, it's a fitness tracker, or Google Fit would be on your phone if you want it to be. And you don't have to do anything but carry your phone, and it will tell you how many steps you walked each day. So, it's kind of, this is a simple one of just sort of looking. And the fact is, once you start tracking it, you tend to go out more. And there's just big pluses in that. So what I want to talk about here is this whole idea of how we walk too. There's a wonderful, wonderful book, which I do recommend, the Foot Fix book. Yamana Zake wrote it, and most of us never really learned to walk correctly too well. We never first learned to use our feet correctly, and then second, most of us were put in shoes from the time we were little, which really affects your gait. So, if you kind of stand, we mostly don't have our feet aligned right. And actually, before I jump into this, just the idea of being out of shoes is a good habit for this stuff. Being barefoot or being in your socks is so much better. And again, it's hard to ever have real data for this because it's just too much. But for me, I'm probably only wearing shoes 10% of my day. Just the way it is. But I never have shoes on at home. I only have shoes on when I have to. I try to be barefoot when I can. So that's another thing. Just you can try, and getting your feet out of shoes is just a good thing. One of the things, the problem with shoes is our body. We're designed so perfectly to be barefoot, right? All these years of living, we're designed for this barefoot, and our shoes throw us off. They crunch our toes. They put us forward like that, and we're actually designed where our whole skeletal system kind of goes right down on the bone of our heel into the ground, right? So we're designed like a building would be designed. You got this structural system that just works, but most of us. We tend to be more in the balls of our feet. We're forward, which causes this hip pain and back pain, and then more of this. And then, of course, when your toes are scrunched together, they don't work right the way you're supposed to walk. So there are a lot of problems that follow from shoes, it would appear to be. And it's a funny thing, in this book, you'd think that she would be, you need to be wearing, when you wear shoes, you need to be wearing, comfortable shoes, not, fabulous shoes. And she's very much, you can wear fabulous stiletto shoes, that's fine. Just do this other stuff to sort of work your feet out. You can, obviously you don't want to be in them, 18 hours a day, but you can wear really great shoes, but you want to be doing this other stuff that kind of works your feet out. So, and people with chronic pain, again, it's hard to say for sure, but very often have a misalignment pattern in their feet that corresponds to the pain. So, and I think that kind of makes sense to us. A lot of pain stuff probably comes up through our feet. So, okay, so, the bad news is we kind of did this to ourselves. The good news is we can fix ourselves, or our bodies fix themselves with a little bit of help. And so let's start, the couple things here. The first one's waking up the heels. So if you stand with your feet about hip width apart and pointing forward, and that's the outside of your foot is pointing forward, is parallel. So a lot of people, when you say feet forward, if they put the inside of your foot, then your feet are going to be sort of splayed out a little bit. So we try to have the outside pointing forward, and take a step forward, and waking up the heel, you just come up and down and feel, go as far as you can back and as far as you can front onto the mat, and just feel that. And then you can do that for a while, and then you can go side to side, and you're putting some weight on it. And then you also can go in clockwise and counterclockwise rotations. So There's also, you can kind of be doing this, there's also sort of a mindfulness component to all this footwork. As the things we're going to be talking about, it's different than like jumping on a treadmill and running, where you can just immediately zone out and switch to your other foot, do that for a while. As you're trying to improve walking and whatnot, there's a real value in thinking about what your foot's actually doing and where you're doing it. So improving all this walking stuff and this foot stuff does take a certain mindfulness. So this book is a manual for your feet, basically an owner's manual. I'm just gonna, if you want to just stand, the heels, like I said, the heels relaxing back. Just try that now. You've woken up your heels a little bit. Just try feet shoulder width apart, hip width apart, facing forward. And now just sort of be back on your heels and feel your weight, feel the gravity just pushing down through your heels. So the balls of your feet, I mean, they're touching obviously, but they don't have a lot of weight. And this is just a great, knees probably bent a little bit. This is just a great way to stand. Now move forward and stand where the weight's more in the balls of your feet or even equal, which is probably what most of us do most of the time. Can you feel the difference? Can you feel in your back, in here, in your back, all the way up through, all the muscles? So the muscles are all doing work that they're not really designed to do. Like if you're standing on your heels, you've got a solid structural system. The muscles are there, wind blows, somebody, grandkid runs into you, whatever, the muscles are there for stability, but if you're using them all the time, you're just creating a situation that's gonna lead to pain. And being in shoes all the time makes that happen. Okay, now, the other thing is, as you walk, and again, shoes tend to help this, but a lot of people tend to walk in the insides of their feet, the big toe side, just sort of walk a little bit, and that generally causes some problems too. Let's try something. Try to walk, take your heel out and go over to the side and then just walk on the outer edge of your foot, all the way up to the little toe. And then the heel, you roll out a little bit, all the way up to the little toe. And just sort of walk in the outer edge of your foot like that. You following what I'm saying? So the heel touches, you roll out a little bit, the force goes all the way down the outer edge and up to the little toe, then the next one. Heel rolls a little bit, up and out. I'll tell you what, if you're ever stressed, this is a great thing to do. Like can do this in the airport. To Debbie's chagrin, I take off my shoes in the airport all the time and walk around. You can do this. You can just walk, or even around your house, you can just walk on your outer edge of your feet, and there's something just extremely calming about it. I'm not even sure why, but so the last one, just to talk about in general, is the need for flexible toes. And again, most people being in shoes all the time, not stretching their feet, their toes are the joints become almost immovable. And that's just such a terrible thing because your feet are so wired to be able to move and, So the toe thing, if you just stand and put your one foot back so that you're sort of on your toe, just the middle part of your toe. And all you do is just kind of shove like you're shoving your knee towards the ground. You can feel your toes are against, you can feel the pressure on your toes, right? Just kind of shove, and you just sort of keep that for a few seconds. And then you can let it go and do it on the other foot. Again, you just kind of push down, and you can feel your toes press, right? You can feel them stretch, right? And then do it back on the first foot with your big toe. You're focused more on your big toe now, and you're pressing forward, just sort of pressing that in, and you're stretching your big toe. And then on the other foot, that's the big toe side of it. And then back to the little toe side, again, just kind of press them in there. And this is something I do most like working days when I just get there in the morning and just stand at the computer. And boy, this just wakes up the feet. There's just something really nice about it. Back to the other little toe side. Okay, now we're gonna do what's called the walking test. So stand with your feet parallel, step 1 foot forward like you're going to take your first step, and you place the center of the back of the heel on the floor, right? So we're just like this. Now, as I said, shift your weight to the outer edge of the heel, right? So you're in the center. Shift your weight to the outer edge, bend your knee a little, and press your weight down onto that outer edge of the heel. As you press, try to stretch the entire outer edge of the heel all the way to the ball of your foot. Like you're stretching your foot forward as you kind of press down a little bit. You might not feel this stretch at first, but imagine it happening. Imagine your little toes sort of moving out a little bit, and it'll come over time that you actually get a stretch there. Now, keeping the weight on the outside, place the entire outside edge of the foot from the front of the heel to the ball down on the floor, okay? So you're rolled over a little bit, then you've got all the way to the ball of your foot down on the floor. And just see if you can do this. A lot of people can't, so if you can, that's great. Now, with the outside still stretched out, what you want to do is stretch your little toe forward and press it in. So can you feel yourself stretching your little toe forward, stretch and press it into the floor? And then you want to do the same with your next toe, all the way to the big toe. So if you can do it one at a time, it takes, your brain may not be wired to do that at this point, but you can move them down 1, 2, 3, 4. And your knees should stay over the center of your ankle. Your ankle should stay straight. If your toes come down in a group, that's first, or that's okay, but it's better to have them come down one at a time if you can. And then when you have all 5 toes pressing on the floor as best you can, you lift the heel of the other foot, and again, the same thing. You are in the center of the heel of your foot, you roll it out, you're the outside of your foot all the way down to the ball, and then the little toes go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now you step forward with the other foot. And again, you step forward, out to the heel. So, I mean, this sounds like a crazy complex process, but this is actually the way we're designed to walk, and you can walk this way. And that's why I said it takes mindfulness. Like, if you're gonna walk and you really do think about this, I think everybody's trying it, so is everything seem fairly clear?
It seems like it kind of twists your knee, though. I know you shouldn't, I mean, you don't, but it feels like, when you do this, it feels like your knee is going,
I think it does a little, yeah. I think that makes sense, because it's like almost a micro movement in your knee, but it's one you're not necessarily used to. And I mean, one thing as we talk about this, from shoes, from growing up or whatever, a lot of us either have our feet a little bit turned in or feet a little bit turned out, right? And that's a hard thing to change, but it is quite changeable. So, and that's why it's this mindful walking, because, and particularly when your feet are splayed like this, I mean, it doesn't take a lot of thinking to realize that, wow, your hip joint's constantly doing this, right? Your hip joint's constantly torquing, which is, over time, is gonna cause you problems. So, trying to walk with your feet straight ahead and having this movement really is good for your knees and hips. So that's the walking test. It's online under this Yamana. If this is something you decide you want to try to do, it really is a valuable thing. Yeah, as your toes are coming down, your knees kind of over your ankle there. Yeah, nothing.
I was trying to get it over my ankle.
Yeah.
It's not happening?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just kind of. Okay, now the next one I'd like to do is called a power stance. So again, and this is just a position, this kind of helps you with your walking if you're gonna do it. So if you're gonna practice the walking. So stand with your feet parallel, hip width apart, shift your weight onto one foot, right? Okay, so shift to the right side, say. Line up the outside edge of the foot so it forms a completely straight line, like we just talked about. From heel to little toe is a straight line. So for most of us, we're used to our feet being more splayed out than that, right? So a straight line from heel to little toe, the padding of your foot's underneath in that situation, and sort of acts as a cushion, a springboard. So when you look down, this foot should look different probably than the other foot. So you've got weight on it. It's straight out from you. And now move your hip a little further out to that side, to the right side, so that more weight goes onto that foot, okay? All the toes except the pinky come off the floor, okay? So you move over to the right, you're sort of pushing down there, your toes come off except the pinky, so you can feel your body weight bearing into the bones on the outer edge of the foot, the knee, the hip. Just stay in that stance for a moment, just feel what that weight in the bones feels like. Okay, with your weight still going to the outside edge of your foot, lower your toes, one at a time, all the way over to your big toe. So you still have your weight on the outside edge of your foot, but now all your toes are down as well. Keep your knee over the middle of keep your knee over the middle of your foot and ankle as you do this. Okay, don't worry if you can't move your toes one at a time, but it's better if you can. Now shift your weight to the other foot and repeat without losing the stance in your first foot. So now you go to the other foot, you straighten it out, so heel to little toe is a straight line going forward. You put the weight over there, you feel it all the way. You're basically having your weight on the outside edge from heel to little toe, and then you take your other toes down all the way to the big toe, and now you shift to the center. So now you have both your feet, your toes are kind of grabbing at the ground, you've got your weight on the outside, and just kind of staying there. Your knees are bent a little bit, and this is a power stance, okay? So this is something that's just good to do if you're standing at a computer or something, whatever, or just standing. This is a stance that just tells your feet how to be, right? So there's a bunch of value in this. You don't go crazy on this stuff. You start it and you work at it. If you can make yourself do it, you work out a little bit at a time, and your joints were, like I said last week, I was doing these squats, I hurt my knee and my back. Well, within a few days, they're both completely fine, but now I can do the squats. And I did push, I went too fast. It was dumb to go as fast as I did. But anyway, when you're doing this stuff, these little things don't usually hurt you in a way that sticks, your body repairs. So the next assessment we're going to talk about is this idea of eat like you're going to live forever, okay? And just to me, this is a basic tenet for me, that I know that without substantial effort, I'm going to put on more weight every year and lose more muscle mass and more neural pathways, right? I think we can all kind of feel that's true. You don't put in some effort, you're going to deteriorate. You're going to put on weight, you're going to lose muscle mass, and you're going to lose some mental capacity. I think that's, I don't need a lot more studies to tell that one's true. So for this one from the book, Built to Move, this one's probably a little more controversial. I enjoyed it. So what they said, there were two things. One was take and measure your food for a day. And their recommendation was to eat 800 grams of fruits and vegetables in a day. So 20 years ago, Debbie and I had a food divorce. I decided I was going to eat healthy, and she said, there's no way I'm doing that. So we eat at very different scales. And so, I measured my, morning egg and all the different vegetables and seeds I put in, all the crazy stuff, and then for my smoothie and for my salad. And hey, I get just about 800 grams a day in that. So it's like, okay, that's kind of the way I eat. Debbie doesn't eat that way at all, but she also is extremely healthy. So
how does 800 grams equate to like?
Yeah. Like I have a quart container, a 4-cup container, and it was like 2 of those big full containers about is what it was. Yeah, so so you can put spinach and lettuce in there, which doesn't weigh much, but is tend to go up, or broccoli, or yeah. So you may or may not be interested in doing this. I was, just because I found it kind of fascinating. And the other one that they have is counting how many grams of protein. Their big pitch is that if we want our bodies to heal themselves, we need more protein, and most people don't get nearly enough. I have to say in my smoothie, I did put in more protein powder as a basis of that, but I do tend to think the amount they're saying is kind of a crazy high amount. It's 2 or 3 times what the government says. And anyways, but I do think some protein, I don't think there's much doubt, protein is what rebuilds our muscles. So as we age, getting a little more protein is a good thing. So again, I want to come back to this thing I started with in the beginning of the class, which is that science just doesn't answer these questions well. And it's a really valuable thing for us to know is that there's too many variables for something like, well, what's the right thing to eat? What diet should you follow? I think you can use your common sense and say this thing's better than that thing, but there's just way too many variables. Lots of people follow a really strict diet and aren't healthy, and vice versa, Debbie. But that doesn't mean she eats like a toddler. But, she's extremely healthy. But it doesn't mean what we eat and how much we eat doesn't matter. It means we're not going to understand it all. Again, same kind of deal. We get the choice how we're going to live. But I think it's really valuable to realize that we're not all have to follow a certain routine. One thing I'll just mention briefly on this is supplements. I went through something about 10 years ago where things happened, got depressed, and I just decided to stop everything. So at that point, I was taking all sorts of supplements. Every time I'd read another thing, I'd think, oh, that could be good, probiotic this, fish oil that, Q10 this, and it was a bunch of stuff. And I just decided to stop all of it. And the interesting thing was I didn't notice any difference at all. Like there simply wasn't. And that isn't of itself that doesn't mean they weren't doing anything. But for me, I decided I just didn't want it. It was also $1,500 a year I was spending on supplements. And it was like, well, okay, I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. But I did also realize as I started to eat healthier that there are things that are generally said to be healthy, like turmeric powder, right? If you read any sort of thing on what's a healthy food, turmeric powder or blueberries or horseradish sauce or seeds. So I did kind of work those things into my food just because I thought, nobody's really going to know, and what's it hurt to throw a little turmeric in my eggs in the morning? And so anyway, but I did. Our son is a drug researcher and does a lot of reporting on cannabis and CBD and psychedelics and that stuff. And he's consistently saying that our body has this cannabinoid system. And anyways, so he did kind of talk me into trying some kind of a highest dosage of CBD. And one thing probably one of the first times ever, what I found was I had, when I worked on the road for Claire's at 18, I dropped a speaker on my finger and split the fingernail, which never grew back. It always grew back split, which is kind of fascinating because when you think of it, so our body, replaces the cells every year or two, right? We're completely new cells every year or two. So something in my body was telling it to grow back wrong all the time, right? It didn't, why would it taught to grow back wrong? But I guess, why do we do what we do is a good question. So anyway, the body told it to grow back wrong for 50 years. And I started taking this CBD, and after a few weeks, that split went away. So I absolutely knew that was changing my cell regrowth pattern. Like that was one where, and if I forget it when we go away, if I'm off it a couple weeks, I notice things and it also made my nails, just everything just a lot more healthy. They're not yellowish, whatever. They grow a lot faster. So anyway, so that was one where I did think, of course, I take it by an oil, and Patty would take that oil for a while, and she would, I think have just as soon died as continued to take that oil. But she did also, on the CBD and PEA, she did actually mostly get rid of migraines. Now you have one this morning, so. So anyway, I don't say that to say, again, just pay attention to your own stuff. So we just have a few minutes here left. I think let's just work a little bit on the resting squat. That's just kind of a good fun one. So again, you know, your feet kind of splayed out on this one, and you know, arms out for your balance. And if you want to go against a wall or something, fine. Or
You know what I just read? Some, like, hold on to a door frame.
that's a good way, yeah. As I really tried to get down, and this was I was so far away a few weeks ago, and I can do it now. Not great, but yeah, I definitely had to hold on. I mean, it was just killing my calves and quads. So anyway, knees out a little bit and slowly gone down, keeping your feet flat, and just see how low you can go. If you need to have your heels come up, do it. But if you can do it with your feet flat and just sort of get down into this position, and for me at this point, I still need to have my arms out because otherwise I just roll over backwards, which is the funniest thing in the world. Yeah. But when you're in this position, and the idea is to try to be in this, that you can be in this a few minutes. And I mean, Tessa can be in this, our daughter can just be in this, period.
I can do it like this all day.
Yeah, no, do whatever. So one thing about this is start to do figure eights. When you're in this, just move your hip a little bit and just, do you know what I mean by figure eights? The 8 point is right in the middle, and you go a little circle to the one side and a little circle to the other, and do those figure eights. That's a really good way to have your hips. And now try to do it in the other direction. And I was amazed that doing that in the other direction really, it really was different. Like to start with, I couldn't do it. I could do it in one direction, but not the other. And I have, you know, bad ankle dorsiflexion, and it's getting better. So anyways, so that's a good one. Let's sit down on the mat and do, and let's do that foot massage thing again. You know, so you're sitting here, and I just think this is such a good one. Be moving your feet, you know, in a rotational, moving your ankles, rotating them, and rubbing your heels.
Better if someone was doing it for you.
It is. In the end, it's just you. Having sat with a bunch of people as they die, in the end, you might as well get ready. So pushing up up through your arch, you know, up to the balls of your feet, again to your toes, rubbing the meaty part of the toes. Again, stretch them, you know, each dimension, stretching them in the X, you know, up and down, stretch them apart, and then kind of rotate them this way and that way. And, you know, your toes just don't generally get that movement, and it's such a valuable thing. And then the top of your feet. The other thing is that this is good for your hands because you're actually doing, you know, hard work with your hands. So again, rotate the other way, rub your heels, rub your arches, balls of your feet, stretch the toes. Yeah. And then one more time, heels to the arches. Yeah, I just think this is just such a great thing to do, and it feels so good. You know, you can be sitting watching TV, sit on the floor and do this. Or like I said, if you struggle to actually do this, sitting at the pool, the heated pool over here, there's a bench, you know, there's benches in there, and it's a great place to do this in the pool because the gravity or the buoyancy force helps your legs to be supported better. So, and then put that foot down and just go up your ankle, go up your calf with your thumbs, pushing in hard. And then with your fingers, a couple of your fingers, really like rubbing those muscles. And as I said, it's good to be kind of moving your ankles when you're doing this stuff. I said before about massage, just a passive squeezing of the muscles and not moving anything doesn't generally do too much. It feels good, but, and then back to your thumbs doing it, going up and down your calf. And then just go up to the knee. Move the knee a little bit. Rub around the knee. Rub up the up the hamstring and move your hip out a little. This stuff should just feel good. Go up to the quad, massage that a little as you're moving your knee and you usually are going to find some place that's a little more tender that you can work on. Okay, and let's just do the other. So start with the ankle, rubbing the heel, then up into the arch, balls of the feet, the toes, down, up, out.
We said about doing steps, or you were standing on the chair.
Oh yeah, I should have said that. I wanted to. Yeah. One thing. Right. One thing I showed in one of the things was like doing step ups, where you're doing, stepping up into a 16-inch chair. And I guess somebody said, well, I'm never doing that. But it could be, and I actually thought, I didn't know it was you that said it, but it could be, being in your basement and stepping up the first basement stair. Just sort of standing there, holding on to something, and just doing 10 steps with one leg and 10 steps with the other. And just doing them intentionally, rather than just walking up the stairs. You're actually just like, you're lifting, you're not jumping up the way you do with your toes. You're just using your quad to lift your foot. So anyway, yeah. So yeah, all this stuff, just, we get to choose how we do and what we do, or to do nothing. So, okay, it's 9 o'clock. That's good. Thank you very much.